Three situations, three seemingly reasonable reactions, and possibly the same cognitive bias at work in all three. Today, you will not just learn what confirmation bias is, you will test whether you can recognize it in yourself. With each situation, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what would I instinctively believe? That question becomes your everyday self-test. Chances are you will catch yourself at least once today. You buy a product and then read some new reviews. Suddenly, the positive review seems especially convincing, while you quickly find an explanation for the negative one. Once we have made a decision, we often stop looking for information objectively. Instead, we look for reassurance that we made the right choice. The same thing happens with money. If you have already invested, positive analysis tend to sound competent, while critical warnings seem exaggerated. The more time, money, or hope we have invested, the harder it becomes to evaluate conflicting information objectively. At work, confirmation bias reinforces our first impressions. When a colleague you respect makes a mistake, it is easy to excuse it. But when someone you already view critically makes the same mistake, it quickly seems to confirm your opinion of them. The same evidence is given a different amount of weight. In relationships, this becomes even more personal. Once you believe that another person is inconsiderate or dishonest, you notice the moments that support this view more strongly. Other evidence, support, good intentions, or simply being under time pressure fades more easily into the background. On social media, this turns into an amplifying loop. You click on content that matches your point of view. The algorithm learns from your behavior and shows you more of the same. As a result, your beliefs seem increasingly well supported. At the same time, other people experience exactly the same process, just with different content. Both sides see more evidence, but they do not see the same evidence. The situations were different, but the process was always the same. First, there is an opinion, an expectation, or a decision. Then, your brain no longer evaluates new information equally. Supporting evidence seems more credible. Conflicting evidence seems weaker, more suspicious, or less important. Confirmation bias may be active when counterarguments immediately trigger an emotional reaction, when you rely only on familiar sources, when you apply double standards, or when you cannot say what would change your mind. At that point, you may no longer be testing your view, you may only be defending it. So what can you actually do when you recognize yourself in a situation like this? We use the 5-step Navigol Countercheck. Pause. Separate facts from interpretation. Define what would disprove your assumption. Look for the strongest counter-evidence. Then move forward with a small but meaningful decision. First, pause. When confirmation feels especially satisfying or a counter-argument immediately makes you angry, treat that as a warning signal. Do not judge immediately. Stop for a moment first. Second, separate facts from interpretation. The message from your boss is a fact. The idea that the conversation will end badly is, at first, only your interpretation. Separating the two creates clarity. Third, define what would disprove your assumption. Perhaps a new project is about to begin. Perhaps your boss is speaking to everyone today. Perhaps you are simply missing one crucial piece of information. Fourth, do not search for even more confirmation. Deliberately look for the strongest counter-evidence. Then ask yourself another question. How would someone who believes the opposite interpret these same facts? Fifth, take a small, reversible next step. If you are still uncertain, choose the smallest useful action that will give you new information instead of immediately forming a major conclusion. Let us return to the message, "We need to talk today." Before using the countercheck, you may have thought, "This is going to be bad." The countercheck changes the way you think. The better conclusion is not, "Everything is definitely fine." It is, "I do not yet have enough information to make a confident judgment." Use this countercheck whenever three things come together. You feel very certain, a counterargument triggers a strong reaction, and the decision could have important consequences. That is when it is worth examining your thinking. Try the countercheck once today. Write down the facts, separate them from your interpretation, look for counter-evidence, and then choose your next small step. Confirmation bias does not lose its power simply because you know about it. It loses its power when you act differently at the moment that matters.